Welcome to another edition of Humm Baby Busts, and today we enter into the decade of the 1980s, possibly the best decade ever for draft picks, with names like Barry Bonds, Ken Griffey Jr., Frank Thomas, and Roger Clemens, among many other superstars. However, there were also many busts, many whom were taken ahead of some of the legends I just mentioned, and many of these high picks taken in the top 10 never even made it to the big leagues. So let's get into it today with the top 15 MLB draft busts of the 1980s. Number 15, Ty Griffin, 1988 9th overall, Chicago Cubs. The 88 MLB draft was full of massive talent, and the Chicago Cubs made the tough decision to pass on Robin Ventura, who was taken one spot later by the White Sox. The Cubs instead went with a switch-hitting second baseman out of Georgia Tech named Ty Griffin, with plans to move him to third base due to already having Ryne Sandberg at second. Griffin was a five-tool talent who had stolen 50 bases in a season, just being caught 4 times, and he had big power potential as well. He hit .322 for his college career with 22 homers and 127 total steals. But after the move to third base, he struggled, making 23 errors in 1989 with AA Charlotte, and also hit poorly with a .231 average and just 3 home runs. In 1990, his average dropped to just .209, and he had injury problems with bursitis in his throwing shoulder. Griffin was never able to really produce at a high level in the minors, although his speed still resulted in 94 career minor league steals. Griffin never made it to the big leagues, but has no regrets about his playing career and went on to be a head coach at Tampa Catholic High School for 10 years. Number 14, Drew Hall, 1984 3rd overall, Chicago Cubs. After losing 91 games in 1983, the Cubs had a chance to enhance their farm system with the 3rd overall pick in the 1984 MLB draft. They passed over names like Jay Bell, Mark McGwire, and Tom Glavine to select a left-handed pitcher named Drew Hall out of Morehead State. He had just gone 9-1 with a 2.18 ERA and 103 strikeouts in 70 innings, and was a member of the U.S. Olympic team. Unfortunately, his numbers fell drastically in the minor leagues. Although he was serviceable, Hall went 10-7 in 1985 with a 4.67 ERA. He struck out 8.6 batters per 9, but also walked 5.3. The following year in AA, he went 8-11 with a 3.58 ERA, good enough to be promoted to the big leagues. He started 4 games for the Cubs and went 1-2, giving up 12 runs and 10 walks in 23 innings. Hall was sent to the bullpen for the following year and struggled in the role until the Cubs traded him to the Rangers in a famous trade that sent Mitch Williams, the Wild Thing, to Chicago. Hall was a serviceable relief pitcher for the Rangers in 1989, then the Expos in 1990, before spending the next 4 seasons in AAA and then retiring. Hall had a career 5.21 ERA with a negative 1.2 WAR, but because he made it to the big leagues and had some moderate success as a reliever, he doesn't come in too high on the list. Number 13, Terry Blocker, 1981 4th overall, New York Mets. In 1981, with their 4th overall pick, the Mets went with a talented college outfielder named Terry Blocker. He had just completed a phenomenal year at Tennessee State, hitting .402 with 11 home runs, 11 triples, and 34 steals in 35 attempts. In 119 total college attempts, he was caught stealing just 3 times. Blocker entered low A in 1981 and was instantly electric, hitting .341 with 14 steals and 7 home runs in 36 games. The next year in AA, Blocker regressed some, hitting just .260 with 5 homers in 438 at-bats, but he did steal 40 bases. His batting average improved over the next couple seasons, although his power never developed. Blocker was promoted to the big leagues in 1985, but went 1-for-15. The Mets never promoted him again, despite a couple more solid seasons in AAA. He was traded to the Braves for Kevin Brown and got an extended shot in the bigs with 210 plate appearances, but he hit just .212 with a .533 OPS and a single stolen base. 1989 was Blocker's final pro season, and he hit .226 for Atlanta, but spent most of the year in the minors. In 1995, Blocker attended spring training as a replacement player with the Braves and made headlines after helping police track down the murderer of his teammate, David Shatkowski, who was shot by a man named Neil Evans during a robbery attempt in West Palm Beach. Blocker scoured through the worst parts of town, gathering information and ultimately discovering the name of the killer. Police made the arrest, and offered reward money to Blocker, but he refused it, telling them to give the money to Shatkowski's wife. Number 12, Mike King, 1980, 4th overall, Oakland Athletics. In 1980, with their 4th overall pick, the Oakland A's tried to save some bonus money and drafted a talented pitcher out of a Division II school called Morningside University in Sioux City, Iowa. His name was Mike King. King dominated batters in his conference, winning the division's most valuable pitcher award, but he had never faced top-level competition. He certainly deserved to be drafted after striking out 93 batters in 56 innings with a .47 ERA. But taking him 4th overall was a huge risk. The A's paid King just $35,000, the lowest bonus in the top 25. Then they made the baffling decision to throw him straight in AAA, where he would face seasoned hitters, many with big league experience. He went 0-4 with a 7.71 ERA, walking 31 batters in just 20 innings. The next year he was traded to the Cubs, who sent him to Single-A, where he should have been in the first place. With his confidence likely already busted, King went 1-3 with a 5.53 ERA in 11 starts, walking 41 batters in 49 innings. He was promoted to Double-A, but was even worse with a 7.76 ERA. He ended up in the Yankees organization, but never could completely solve his control issues. He was also not blowing hitters away, striking out just 5.4 batters per 9 throughout his minor league career. Ultimately, although King was a bust, I can't put him too high on the list because he should have never been taken 4th overall and certainly should not have started his minor league career in AAA. Number 11, Donald Harris, 1989, 5th overall, Texas Rangers. With the 5th pick of the 1989 draft, the Texas Rangers went with a raw but toolsy Texas Tech outfielder Donald Harris, ahead of potential picks like Frank Thomas and Mo Vaughn. Harris was a multi-sport athlete who was also an all-Southwest Conference safety. As a baseball player, he hit .322 with 10 homers and a .938 OPS. He also had tremendous speed, although likely due to a coaching decision, he didn't steal a lot of bases. He also missed a lot of baseball due to his football obligations. After a solid stint in rookie ball in 1989, Harris was sent to Single-A in 1990, but struggled, hitting just .184. In Double-A in 92, he hit just .227 with a very low .278 on-base percentage and 11 home runs. He stole 9 bases but was caught 8 times. Despite these stats, the Rangers promoted Harris, and he had a successful initial call-up, going 3 for 8 with a home run, but this small sample size was deceiving, and in 1992, he hit .182 with 15 strikeouts and 33 at-bats.
Donald Harris was drafted ahead of Frank Thomas by the Rangers. They could have had a shot at Frank as he fouled this one back. He was a football player, standout football player at Texas Tech. Somehow I think they feel like they may have gotten the wrong guy. You think so? Yeah. What makes you think that? Well, because probably Frank's the best player in the American League right now. That's probably why. Anybody. Got him fastball.
They gave him one last look in 1993, but Harris hit .197 and retired after 2 more seasons in the minors. After retiring from baseball, he continues to stay around the game, attending various camps and youth leagues where he serves as a mentor and motivational speaker. Number 10, Stan Hilton, 1983, 5th overall, Oakland Athletics. 1983 was a somewhat slow draft, but it did produce one of the greatest pitchers in MLB history, Roger Clemens, at number 19. The A's and several other teams passed on Clemens, and they took a different right-hander. With their number 5 pick, the A's went with Baylor University pitcher Stan Hilton. Hilton was among college baseball's leaders in ERA and strikeouts, but his talent simply did not translate to the pros. With high A Modesto, he went 3-4 with a 4.95 ERA, only striking out 36 batters in over 56 innings. He was eventually promoted to Double-A in '86, but in 19 starts, he had a 6.52 ERA, giving up 136 hits in 89 innings. He was traded to the Indians and made it to AAA, but did not show much improvement there, and retired from the game after the 1989 season, never having made it to the big leagues. Hilton went on to become a professional pitching coach, coaching in both the minors and the independent leagues. Number 9, Willie Ainsley, 1988 7th overall, Houston Astros. From around 1985 to 1988, one of the most exciting and electric high school athletes in the country was named Willie Ainsley, and he dominated multiple sports at Plainview High School in Texas. His speed and agility were top-notch, and he had his choice of paths to take as graduation neared. His favorite sport was basketball, but he felt his best was football, and he had a scholarship offer to play football for the Oklahoma Sooners and had committed to do so after a meeting with their head coach, Barry Switzer. Then, the Houston Astros selected him 7th overall to play professional baseball after he hit .479 with 8 home runs and 40 RBIs, and he hit multiple tape measure bombs in front of scouts. For a $180,000 bonus, Ainsley signed with the Astros and entered their minor league system, and after 103 games had a .309 average and .846 OPS with 53 steals. He was promoted to Double-A, but his numbers dropped. He hit just .255 in 1990, then .232 in 91, and he was also showing very little power. Ainsley was finally promoted to Triple-A in 1993, and he had a decent season, hitting .262 with 5 homers and a .390 on-base percentage, but it wasn't enough to get a big league promotion. During the minor league playoffs that year, he tore a ligament in his thumb, and the Astros released him after the season. Ainsley played some in the Mexican and independent leagues before retiring, and he entered into coaching at Lamar High School, where he coached a young Anthony Rendon. Number 8, Monty Farris, 1988 6th overall, Texas Rangers. From 1986 to 1988, one of the brightest and hottest college hitters in the country, played at Oklahoma State, and his name was Monty Farris. In 1988, the year he was drafted, Farris was absolutely unstoppable, hitting .397 with 30 home runs and 114 RBIs in just 69 games. In 242 at-bats, he struck out just 38 times.
He's more machine now than man.
Farris set a school record with a hit in 25 consecutive games, and he had an incredible 1,368 OPS. Farris looked like an absolute lock to be a future MLB superstar, and the hype was real as he entered rookie ball and hit .396 with 4 home runs. The Rangers bumped him all the way up to Double-A, and that's where Farris ran into problems. In 49 games with the Tulsa Drillers, he hit just .224 with 3 homers in 17 games. In his first full season at Double-A, Farris had a decent .272 average, but he hit a mere 5 home runs in 497 at-bats. Then in 1991, after a couple solid seasons in Triple-A, the Rangers promoted Farris, but their expectations had fallen drastically after he showed very little power in the minors. He hit .258 with a single home run in 38 at-bats. The following season, after hitting just .217, the Rangers let Farris go. He caught on with the Florida Marlins and hit .173 for them in their inaugural season. After 2 more seasons in the minors, Farris was out of baseball with a career .217 average and -2 WAR.
You were the chosen one!
He moved back to Oklahoma and started a batting cage business. Farris was elected to the Oklahoma State Cowboys Baseball Hall of Fame and should also be considered, in my opinion, for the College Baseball Hall of Fame. Number 7, Kurt Brown, 1985, 5th overall, Chicago White Sox. 1985 was one of the strongest and most famous drafts of all time, producing talents like Will Clark, Barry Larkin, B.J. Surhoff, Bobby Witt, Rafael Palmeiro, Randy Johnson, and Barry Bonds. But one pick before the Pittsburgh Pirates selected Bonds out of Arizona State, the White Sox had an opportunity to do the same. Instead, they went with an 18-year-old high school catcher named Kurt Brown.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Leading White Sox fans to play the what-if game for years to come. Brown, who turned down a football scholarship to play at Long Beach State, was a pure hitter with a fantastic arm, but struggled out of the gate in the minors, hitting .205 with just 3 homers in rookie ball. He improved the next year, but not by much, hitting .234 in A-ball, and his progress was extremely slow as he played just well enough to hang around, but never enough to get promoted to the big leagues. He didn't play a full season in Double-A until 1990, when he hit just .269 with 4 home runs. That same year, Barry Bonds won the MVP award and a Gold Glove with Pittsburgh. Brown played one last season in Triple-A in 1986 before retiring from baseball. he returned to school to earn his degree and entered into the finance world. He became the vice president of First Montana Bank in 2020. Number 6, Jeff Jackson, 1989 4th overall, Philadelphia Phillies. In 1989, the Philadelphia Phillies had the rare opportunity to have the 4th overall pick in the MLB draft, and there was a ton of talent to choose from, including Frank Thomas out of Auburn, Chuck Knobloch from Texas A&M, and Seton Hall's Mo Vaughn. The Phillies instead went with a high school kid who had just hit over 500 his senior year and had tremendous potential, Jeff Jackson. He had won the Gatorade Player of the Year award and was considered a premier five-tool talent. However, he was just 17 years old and had immediate trouble against professional pitching. After a rough stint in rookie ball, he played his first full season in low A in 1990 and hit just 198 with 3 home runs. He stole 12 bases, but was caught 11 times. A lower draft pick would have already been released, but Jackson was promoted to A-ball in 91 and continued to struggle, hitting .225 with 5 home runs. Later, he said he felt some culture shock and isolation during those first couple of years in the minors and was pressured heavily by the press, with one journalist calling him Clueless Jeff Jackson. The Phillies hung on to Jackson all the way through the 1994 season, in which he hit just 177 in Double-A. Realizing he was not going to meet expectations, he was finally released and caught on with the White Sox organization for a season before entering the independent leagues. He hit much better there and was given one more shot in affiliated ball with the Pirates in 1998, and he hit .278 with a couple of home runs with their high A team, but that would be his final season of professional baseball. Jackson has since started a sports and entertainment agency and written a book called The Gift and the Curse, The Jeff Jackson Story. Number 5, Bill Bennett, 1988 5th overall, Los Angeles Dodgers. Back in the 80s, baseball cards of draft picks usually weren't a thing, but this Bill Bennett card was fairly hot for a short while. Bennett was taken 5th overall in the 1988 draft by the Dodgers, the same team that also drafted Mike Piazza that year with the 1,390th pick, and they also took Eric Karros with the 140th. Luckily, those 2 picks worked out. But the same cannot be said for Bill Bennett, who had a lively arm that the Dodgers loved. Scouts saw his stuff and thought that he could be an elite arm, but needed some professional coaching to improve his control, which was absolutely terrible in college. It was a huge gamble to take him so high, and the Dodgers lost the bet. Bennett did go 5-0 in his first professional season, but he must have gotten some solid run support because he walked 45 batters in 65 innings and gave up 33 runs for an ERA of 4.55. Next year in A-ball, the numbers became ridiculous and video game-ish in a bad way. In 27 innings, he struck out a decent 24 batters, but also walked 56. His ERA ballooned up to 12.64. In 1990 at Vero Beach, things really got out of hand as he walked 96 batters in 56 innings. The run support finally ended for Bennett too, as he went 1-10 with an ERA of 6.99. If Bennett wasn't the 5th overall pick, he would have been released a long time ago at this point. Instead, he came back year after year, sometimes showing slight improvements in his control, but never being able to consistently command the zone. In 1994, still in the Dodgers organization, he walked 49 batters in 50 innings with a 6.04 ERA, strictly coming out of the bullpen at this point. Mercifully, the Dodgers released him, and the Reds took a chance on him the next year with their Double-A team, but he walked 9 batters in 4 innings to end the experiment. He missed the 96 season and made a comeback attempt with the Angels in 97, but the control just wasn't there. Even at this point, he struck out 70 batters in 68 innings, but walked 66. Bennett was finally out of baseball, but continued to get busted even later in life, as he was arrested and sentenced to 6 months in jail in 2012 for operating a counterfeit karaoke business without paying taxes. Once a bust, always a bust. Number 4, Mark Merchant, 1987, 2nd overall, Pittsburgh Pirates. In 1987, the Pirates had the 2nd overall pick just after the Mariners, who used their 1st overall pick to take a future Hall of Famer named Ken Griffey Jr. With the 2nd pick, the Pirates went with another high school outfielder by the name of Mark Merchant. He was a speedy 5-tool talent who stole 48 bases in 49 attempts his senior year and hit .419 with 5 home runs. The Pirates hoped that he would develop more power in the minor leagues. In his first year in rookie ball, Merchant hit .265 with 3 homers and 33 steals in 50 games, a decent start. But then halfway through the next season, he separated his shoulder diving for a ball, ending his season. He was only hitting .242 at the time with a couple home runs, and the Pirates traded him to the Mariners, who now had both Griffey Jr. and Merchant, the top 2 picks of the '87 draft. Unfortunately, Merchant didn't do much better in the Mariners organization, putting up below average numbers for several years in the minors, while also battling multiple injuries. After hitting .244 with a .685 OPS in AA in 1992, the M's released him. Merchant considered retirement, but instead signed with the Reds and showed some signs of why he was originally a second overall draft pick. He hit .301 with 17 home runs in AA in 1993 and earned a promotion to AAA, but he never did make it to the big leagues. Merchant ended up in the independent leagues and also spent some time in the White Sox and Royals organizations, playing all the way through the 1998 season. Merchant said, "To be able to still have good success in AA when I couldn't run or throw like I used to says a lot. I gave it everything I had. I played those last 7 years with one arm and one leg." After retirement, Merchant earned his real estate license and started his own business near Denver, Colorado. Number 3, Auggie Schmidt. 1982 second overall, Toronto Blue Jays. During the late 1970s, a high school player named Auggie Schmidt was already making headlines and was drafted by the Orioles in the 9th round of the '97 draft. Instead of signing with the O's, Schmidt went on to play college ball at the University of New Orleans, and his draft stock only skyrocketed from there after he hit .352 with an OPS over 1,000 while playing elite defense at shortstop. In 1981, in over 200 at-bats, he struck out just 16 times while walking 52. Schmidt had an advanced knowledge of the strike zone and was one of the finest pure hitters in the draft. In 1982, the Blue Jays took him second overall, and he hit well through the low levels of the minors, but once Schmidt hit AAA in 1984, on the verge of the big leagues, he hit a snag. In 46 games at Syracuse, he hit just .201 with a .280 on-base percentage and battled injuries, including a fractured wrist. He still put the ball in play, but with very little authority. He didn't hit a single home run. "The aluminum bat helped me an awful lot," he admitted. The Blue Jays decided to move on from Schmidt and traded him to the Giants. With the Giants' AA and AAA teams, he improved his average to .273 but still hit 0 home runs. The Giants released him, and he caught on with the Twins for his final pro season in 1986 when Schmidt hit just .226 all the way back down in A-ball. After his career, he entered coaching and went on to become the head coach at Carthage College, where he has led the team to multiple division titles and championship runs. Number 2, Gary Harris, 1980 second overall, Toronto Blue Jays. The 1980 draft had some phenomenal 5-tool talents, including Billy Beane, Darryl Strawberry, Kelly Gruber, and the player the Blue Jays took second overall, Gary Harris. While Billy Beane can also be considered a bust, at least he made it to the big leagues and wasn't picked until number 23. Harris was taken at number 2 and had just hit .426 his senior year in high school with 16 steals and 16 attempts. Unfortunately, he was very raw and unproven against top-level talent. The Blue Jays quickly found out that he would likely not be their future shortstop as they had hoped. He made 54 errors in rookie ball, worse than any other player in the minors. Harris did hit .272, but had very little power. And the next season in A-ball, over a full season, he hit .253 with 15 homers, still struggling defensively. His average dropped again the next year to .235 and then .224 in AA in '83. The Blue Jays released him after the 1983 season, but in a creative move, they picked up Kelly Gruber from Cleveland in the Rule 5 draft, which gave them another shortstop from the 1980 draft. And Gruber worked out with the Blue Jays. He ended up becoming a staple in the Toronto lineup all the way through 1992, the year they won their first World Series. Gary Harris went on to work for the city of San Diego for 25 years, retiring in 2015. He became a do-it-yourself car mechanic and spent most of his time with his family until 2022 when he passed away. Number 1, Sha Abner, 1984 first overall, New York Mets. Coming in as my number one draft bust of the 80s is Sha Abner. It was the 1984 draft, and the Mets were looking to build the best outfield in baseball. They already had Darryl Strawberry, and Billy Beane was getting ready to be promoted. They identified Sha Abner as an all-around, can't-miss prospect. So the Mets took him as the number one overall pick ahead of USC star Mark McGwire. He hit for a decent average in the minors, but his power was lacking. In 1986 with the AA Jackson Mets, he hit .266 with 14 homers and a .739 OPS. The Mets decided to include him in a blockbuster trade that sent Kevin Mitchell to the Padres for Kevin McReynolds. With the Las Vegas Stars AAA team in 1987, Abner hit .300 with 11 home runs, and the Padres decided to give him a shot in the big leagues. Unfortunately, he was just not very good, hitting .181 in 1988 and .187 in 1989. He didn't even offer any power to offset the low batting averages. He was let go by the Padres and spent some time with the Angels and White Sox before spending the entire 1994 season in the minors with the Royals organization. He then crossed the picket line and joined the replacement players in 1995 spring training. He never played in the big leagues again. In 2020, Abner was sentenced to 4.5 to 23 months in prison for animal cruelty after leaving his dog at home for over a month, resulting in the dog passing away. Apparently, he didn't ask anyone to care for the dog while he was gone. Just that terrible act and the fact that he was the number one overall pick and had a negative 1.3 career WAR is enough for me to put him as my number one bust of the 1980s. And that does it for today's video on the biggest draft busts of the 1980s. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate the support. Look forward to more draft bust videos in the future as well, and other interesting documentaries and countdowns. Have a wonderful day. Hit the thumbs up and subscribe button. Leave a comment down below, and we'll talk to you in the next one.